And good morning, good morning. Going to see if we can fast forward a little bit here into the sponsor slides as I greet you this morning. Before we get forward on this, actually, let me stop this one. We need to really start, as we do in every one of our sessions, with the national anthem of our host country. So please stand as we celebrate the Irish national anthem. Thank you. Okay, let's start running the deck again on the sponsors. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Goal 2017, where we celebrate our 20th year as an organization, the Global Aquaculture Alliance, and our 18th Goal Conference. Most importantly, it is our first ever meeting in Ireland, home of poets, of writers, of musicians, and mythology, and obviously some wonderful young singers. That young man is spectacular. I don't know if you were at the event last evening where he also sang for us impromptu without any pre-warning on our part. What an amazing talent that young man is. And what a beautiful place this is for us to celebrate aquaculture, this wonderful growing source of healthy protein to feed the global community. As we look forward to the next 3 days, we not only want to welcome you, but we want to thank the sponsors, we want to thank the hosts for the conference here, we want to thank the people who have worked behind the scenes, and most importantly, we want to thank you for joining us again for Goal 2017. I do want to acknowledge a very special guest that is with us today, who embodies the wonderful work that's being done in aquaculture around the world. Part of our job, part of our mission, is to put a face and a place to what takes place in aquaculture. This face is Satali Gomez, a second generation woman-owned trout farmer from rural Mexico. And I want to take a few minutes to show you a video of Satali's work.
My name is Wally. I live in Seattle. We produce trout for a living. I live here with my husband, with my mom, and I have a 10-year-old. We live here in the center of Mexico.
That is but an example of the video work that we're developing. Now, Satali is meant to be with us. Are you out there? If you are, please stand. Be recognized, the back of the room. Thank you for that work you're doing in aquaculture. We are doing more of these videos, again, to put a face and a place to associated with aquaculture. We just finished some shooting here in Ireland It is our third video. The second one will be shown later this week, introduced earlier this week. And really what we're trying to demonstrate is that there are people who love, who fight for, and are transformed by aquaculture as a career and as a profession. Aquaculture is growing around the world, and we need to celebrate that growth. Later this morning, we have a presentation by the Global Seafood Sustainability Initiative. Many of us know of it as GSSI, a benchmarking organization. However, whether benchmarked or not, it is my sincere belief that the work of all standard schemes, all rating programs, all improver programs are doing wonderful work on behalf of aquaculture and of the fisheries. And again, we should celebrate this work that's being done by NGOs, by governments, by private sector firms to advance the cause of aquaculture and the fisheries. So in thinking about our theme this year, from promise to delivery, the next 20 years, I want to bring up a question that I think we all need to ask ourselves, and that is, how are those of us in this room who are growers and producers, distributors and marketers of aquaculture products going to deliver wholesome and healthy seafood to an increasing number of consumers? I'd like to suggest the how of that, and it starts with this poem by William Butler Yeats. I went out to the hazelwood because a fire was in my head, and cut and peeled a hazel wand, and hooked a berry to a thread. And when white moths were on the wing, and moth-like stars were flickering out, I dropped the berry in a stream, and caught a little silver trout. This poem captures for me the importance of vision, the fire in one's head, as compared and contrasted to the passion that we find from fire in our bellies. Everything starts with vision. Everything starts with a fire in one's head. And I thought this poem from Yeats really illustrated that beautifully. And frankly, if I can get the next one up here, it is what this young man 20 years ago created. And if you think about vision, if you think about success that flows from vision, I mean, we owe a great deal of gratitude to George Chamberlain and a number of his associates who 20 years ago felt that we needed to have an association that really focused on advocating for the men and women who are conducting aquaculture around the world. So George, thank you very much wherever you may be hiding on us today. But what's the vision in my head? What's the fire that exists within me? And it is for a future without the divisions that now exist between aquaculture and the wild capture fisheries. I believe that we need to start looking at ways to improve both the aquaculture and wild capture sectors, and not one at the expense of the other. In my career, approaching 50 years in this industry, the one constant I have seen is change. And sometimes that change comes slowly, and other times, in the case of, for example, the salmon industry, it's come quite quickly upon us. When I think about 45 years ago, we were talking about whole fillet blocks or minced blocks. We were talking about 5-pound shell-on shrimp or 2-kilo packs of shrimp. And just a few decades later, thanks to the innovators and research people, processors in the room today, we talk about fresh fish without bones. We talk about seafood with sauces. We talk about shrimp without the shells. We talk about new interesting fish species from around the world, and whether they're wild caught, or they're grown in lakes, or they're grown in ponds, or estuaries, or tanks, fjords, or in the ocean, they provide a wonderful, healthy, nutritious, desired protein for the world. And think about how our reach is to the marketplace and how that has changed. The role of Amazon acquiring Whole Foods, the role of e-commerce initiatives taking place in China to reach the growing market. These are exciting times before us. And given the enormous progress that the aquaculture industry has made in just 20 years, what does the future look like? Those are the discussions that we will be having over the course of the next 3 days. But I'd like to just start with just one premise, and that is that we haven't yet met the mutual expectations that we should have for aquaculture. And I would say those same expectations should flow to the wild fishery. We need to have predictable supplies. We need to have predictable costs of products. We need to respect the environment in which we grow these animals. We need to have respect for workers, respect for the care, proper care of animals. We need to have safe products and safe food. While we have not demonstrated fully on any one of these promises to date, I suggest in the next 20 years we can, we must, and we can only do that if we work together as a collective, and that collective includes the wild fishery as well as does aquaculture. And I say that because of the intersections that truly exist between the wild sector and aquaculture. In the wild sector, we think of a fisheries being certified. If prosecuted by vessels that land those products, they go to ports, it comes into processing plants. But those same vessels land product that goes into feed, that goes into aquaculture, that goes down into that feeds the hatcheries. Oh, by the way, those hatcheries also flow up, in the case of salmonids and other species in some cases, to the wild fishery as well. Those feed mills provide feed that goes into the farms. Those farms flow forward into the processing plants. I suggest there are a number of common connection points between the wild fishery and aquaculture that collectively we need to think about and do a better job on addressing to meet the expectations. So, for me, it suggests there's need for ownership of a mission. And that mission is to increase predictable supplies of both wild-caught and farm seafood, and that consolidations will be needed in order for that to happen. We also need to deliver credible assurances to the marketplace and to consumers that the seafood is responsibly grown and sustainably harvested. And that includes full sustainability for sustainability, social worker issues, animal welfare, and food safety. So, if we need ownership of a mission, who's responsible for owning that particular mission? I would not be so presumptive to think that it is industry alone, as it is not. It is industry as supported and working with NGOs, with government enterprises, with the private sector, with research facilities, academia. Collectively, we need to figure out how to get to a better place as an industry. And finally, one of the key reasons that we came to Ireland for Goal 2017 is because we have a great deal of regard for those involved with aquaculture in this country, and to that extent, I'm pleased to introduce to you somebody with a clear vision for aquaculture, I believe a fire in his head, Michael Creed, Ireland's Minister of Agriculture, Food and Marine. Michael?